Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Balter. I'm here with Ryan Spillane, and we have Ari Plaut on the line as well. Today, we're going to be talking about account-based marketing and HubSpot. Account-based marketing has been coming up a lot recently. It's become a big trend, and we really want to dive into how account-based marketing and HubSpot work together. So let's just jump to the next slide and get a couple pieces out of the way here. If everybody could just click, if you're watching on the thank you page, if you could just click through to the event page, you'll be able to ask questions live, or feel free to just watch from the thank you page if that would be better. But if you want to ask questions, you should click the link below the video, and that'll take you to the event page on Google where you can then ask questions. So once you're in this Hangout, if you could just see, if you could just click down on Ari's screen, and you'll be able to see, the slides that we're going through. So, Ari, if we could just jump to the next slide. Okay, great. So I'm Sam Balter. I'm a field marketing manager here at HubSpot. I'm with Ryan Spillane, who runs our corporate West sales team, and Ari Plaut, who is one of our product marketing managers here. So we could go through to next. Okay, so cool. I'm going to just pass it over to Ari to start talking about what is ABM.
All right, fantastic, Sam. Thank you, appreciate it. So let's start out with kind of where most research starts these days, which is on Wikipedia. What is account-based marketing? It's this big trend that keeps coming up. What does it really mean? So this is the Wikipedia definition. Now it's a lot of words, but a couple of big takeaways to point out just from this definition. First, what's key here, we're talking about companies. So we're not talking about individuals, we're talking about companies and the relationships between members of those companies. Second, and really important, we're talking about a methodology that's really only relevant for large B2B organizations and sales teams. So it's not friends necessarily with B2C, doesn't really work so much for SMB. But this idea of marketing centered around companies, you might be saying to yourself, is nothing super new, right? It's something we've been doing for a while. It's a mindset that we've been thinking about for a long time. So what's super special about this concept? What does it mean? How is this new version of ABM or this new company-centric thinking, how is it different? As often happens when these new terms arise, they're not always super easy to grasp. So I think Joey is on board with the rest of us. We want to make sure we have a good understanding first of what ABM really is. So let's walk through quickly the traditional steps within the ABM process. First, you identify your target. So at this point, marketing and sales are working together to develop a key list of target accounts by looking at a whole bunch of things. So by looking at firmographic data, whether that's industry, company size, location, revenue, in addition to things like strategic factors, market influence, likelihood of a repeat purchase perhaps. And then you combine that with the intuition and the experience of a sales organization and a marketing team, and you get a set of key target accounts, a small group of target accounts that you really want to be centering your business around. Next, research those accounts. So once you have that list of targets, the goal is to understand what the company structure is and where the key players sit within those accounts. So who are the decision makers? Who are the influencers? Sometimes this data lives in-house. It lives within your company. Other times, more often I would say, this data has to be purchased from a third party or obtained through some manual research, whether it's LinkedIn or elsewhere. Next, create your content. So you have your target accounts, you know the key players at each of these accounts. The idea on step 3 here is to create brand new content for each of the key players in each of those target accounts. That speaks to the specific pain points of those. So the idea here is less focused on personas and on casting a wide net at the top of the funnel for your new business. It's really laser focused on single specific deals at really specific organizations. Fourth, choose your channels. So here's where you're choosing the channels that you're going to deliver the content through. So whether that be And oftentimes on the ABM front, and proponents of ABM will commonly cite outbound approaches. So that means things like direct mail, third-party events, cold calls, cold emails as the best channels for this type of account-based marketing. And then finally here, kind of combining the last two steps into one, we're ready to execute the campaign. Key concept here is that you really want to coordinate the messaging across your channels. So the idea would be not to send the same message, not to send different messages or different signals to the same person in one of those target accounts through your different channels. Once you're finished with that execution, you move on to the step 6 here, time to analyze your results at the account level. So rather than asking questions about individuals, you're asking questions about the companies themselves. So are we growing our list of the individuals at a certain target account? How much revenue have you generated from a specific set of target accounts, right? So it's not how many leads do we have total, it's not how many companies have we generated total. The idea is that we're focused on a specific set of target accounts and we're measuring our results against that specific set of accounts. All right, that's the basic process. 6 steps, seems easy enough. That's account-based marketing in a nutshell. As you might imagine, inbound ABM aren't always, I would say, the best of friends, right? And you may have heard that out in the world as well. But I would argue that there are a lot of ideas with ABM that we can really, really get behind. So to talk through a couple of those. Number 1, the idea of marketing to all the individuals within a company with some kind of a holistic strategy is not new, and we think that it's really important. This concept is really, especially, of course, in B2B marketing, no matter what your methodology is, whether it's ABM, whether it's inbound, this idea of thinking about companies holistically at the aggregate level is really, really important. Number 2, you've heard it from us before, the modern buyer is not looking to get sold to, right? We as buyers, we control our access to all the information that's out there in the world. We don't need sales quite as much as we used to. And so we can tune out messages that we don't want to be consuming, right? With that in mind, marketing needs to provide value and not push products and be salesy. So this is something that I think both ABM and Inbound really grasp, that this idea of a helpful and valuable over pushy and salesy is really taking hold. Next up, personalization. So with the same new buyer in mind, experiences online and in the world can no longer be one size fits all. So these online experiences especially must be personalized around each individual, whether it's within a company or just out there in the world. That means emails, that means websites, that means calls to action. It means every interaction that a potential customer takes along the way has to be personalized to their specific context. And that's something that both ABM and Inbound really agree on. Next up, marketing takes time. So success in marketing isn't something that's bought. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that can be gamed or that you can kind of cheat the system to win at marketing. Both ABM and Inbound are really on the same page that marketing takes time, that this sustainable kind of success, this evergreen success, takes time, it takes effort, it takes building relationships in order to really succeed. Next up, content is still king. So you've heard this many times from us and from other places, this idea that really valuable, really helpful and persona-aware content still works, whether that's ABM, whether that's company, whether that's B2B or B2C, that's something that really, really is still pivotal. And then the final couple here is smarketing. So this idea that communication, transparency between marketing and sales is still at the core of sustained marketing success, whether you're using ABM or you're using Inbound, or both. And then finally, using data. So in both strategies, data is vital. In ABM, there's a little bit more of an emphasis on kind of the front end of the data. So in that case, it's using that in-house or that purchase data to select your accounts in the first place. Whereas in Inbound, data comes in a little bit more throughout the methodology. So all the decisions you make at any point, at any stage within your buyer's journey is informed by data, right? So these are a lot of things that ABM and Inbound are really, really on the same page about. they're really not, I guess I would say they're not such enemies after all. They really can be on board on the same page in a whole lot of ways. Many of these core tenets are shared between the two. Now, one of the best things about HubSpot is that when new ideas do arise, when you do have a flexible tool like HubSpot, we already have much of this functionality that's related to these new tools already baked in. So even before the ABM playbook kind of came into the spotlight over the last few months and years, many of the key components and the key ideas were already being executed by thousands and thousands of marketers within the HubSpot software. So just to give you a little bit of an idea about the types of things and the ways that we think about ABM in the context of our own tool and our own platform, here's a couple examples. So first, this idea of company profiles. So these company profiles show all of your company's interactions with a specific account, from the calls that you make to the emails that you sent to the meetings that you hold, all on one single timeline. Where it gets really cool and really powerful for me is that HubSpot actually automatically injects a whole lot of valuable data, a whole bunch of extra fields onto every company that you create within the system. So revenue, the size of the company, industry, and a whole lot more. All of that is added to a company profile. Just a single email address, a single contact within the account added to our system. So just one email address added as a contact. The company is auto-created if you so choose, and all of this additional insight, this additional information is piped in without any extra clicks. So from this screen, this company profile, this account, you can easily access, as you can see on the left, all the deals and the contacts that are associated with this account. You can create as many properties as you want to store that account-specific information. And one other thing here is that these accounts, these companies within HubSpot sync really seamlessly with Salesforce accounts as well. So if you're a user of Salesforce CRM, you can sync these accounts with Salesforce and bring those new accounts automatically from Salesforce into HubSpot and segment on them on the HubSpot side of things. Next up, custom segments. So with HubSpot's list tool, you can see our list tool over on the left. You can get all of the contacts from one of your target accounts or from several of your target accounts into a single view. So you can see here we pulled a company property, a specific account name, in this case HubSpot, and combined that with a contact property across to a different object, which is the predictive lead score, to get a view just of the most qualified records within the HubSpot account. My particular favorite thing about this, you can see the columns lining up just in the middle there. You have name, you have email. You can customize those and reorder them in any way you want. So whether you want that lead score and some kind of qualifying information, or whether you want a conversion date or a specific conversion type, or even some of the analytics information that we collect. So things like the number of emails you've clicked, the number of forms you've submitted, anything like that. You can pull that into these segments as well. Next, automation. So we do have marketing automation built in. The idea here is that you can create workflows to follow up with leads based on account level information. So the example you see over on the left-hand side is actually a workflow that one of our own sales reps, Ari Plaut, put together, where she combines some information that's pulling over from Salesforce. That owner name is pulling in, set to Ari Plaut, and then this target account is known. So within the company property, we check off a box that indicates whether we're targeting a specific account. And then finally, she pulls in that contact property of her particular region. So she wants to follow up with her target accounts in a certain way. And you can see towards the bottom left there, she's sending these specific personalized targeted emails to only the folks that meet the criteria of this particular workflow. And that's all based on company specific information rather than only contact specific information. Company personalization. So we talked about the idea of personalization being something that ABM and Inbound really share as a core tenet. The idea here within HubSpot is that you can create website pages, landing pages, emails, calls to action that adapt to a specific set of visitors. So for example, if we wanted to show different calls to action to the contacts that are within a certain company or even within a certain industry, we could. What's even better here is that even if contacts haven't filled out a form specifically on your website, we have an advanced email tracking that enables you to tie contacts back to the company level with only the click of an email. So if you're emailing these folks and they haven't yet filled out a form on the site, we can track them, we can identify them, and then next time they come to the site or next time they receive an email, we can personalize their interaction and their experience to just this particular context. And finally, most importantly, that fifth and sixth step all the way at the end of the ABM lifecycle. This idea of reporting, of analyzing and understanding exactly what worked and what didn't within your target account approach. Within HubSpot, we can do that too. So whether it's reporting on your companies over time, on your revenue from the companies, on job titles, on engagement levels, anything you need, you can report on those all at the account level. So rather than the contact level, aggregate them to the account level. You can see over on the left-hand side, this is just a specific instance where we're observing how HubSpot contacts have grown over time. So we can see the growth of the contacts over time. You can see the job title breakdown. Who are the folks at HubSpot that we are most interacting with? And you can add as many dashboards as you'd like for as many target accounts as you have. You can add as many tiles as you'd like to those individual dashboards. And you can even set up automatic email schedules. So if you want to get these target account updates once a week, once a month, send them to your boss or to the whole sales team once a week or once a month, you can do just that. So the idea here is that you want to have a good and a firm understanding of not just the companies themselves, but the penetration within those companies. So how deeply ingrained your sales team and your product is within those companies as you go. So with all that being said, we see eye to eye with a lot of the tenets of ABM, but it doesn't mean, just to clarify, that we're using cold calling or any of those other interruptive tactics that we talk so much about, right? So we've been able to market to companies successfully at the account level with this mindset of company first, with our inbound tactics that are so tried and true over the years. So with that in mind, I wanted to pass it back over to Ryan. Ryan's a member of our corporate sales team, as Sam had mentioned. He's going to give you a sense of what ABM looks like tactically for our own corporate sales organization. So Ryan, I'll pass it back over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Ari. Thanks everyone for jumping on. I think this is a really interesting opportunity to think about ABM and inbound, and really what I'm going to do here over the next 10 minutes or so is just kind of set the stage for how we leverage ABM and inbound for our corporate sales team. And I'll set the landscape a bit so everybody can understand what the selling environment looks like. But super fascinating. I mean, we're not only leveraging these things, ABM and inbound internally as I team up with Sam and Ari and our marketing partners, but we're certainly serving our customers on both models as well. And I think this is a real interesting opportunity to think about how both models can be leveraged. And I'll use HubSpot's current selling environment as the example. So as we take a look here, currently today within HubSpot's corporate selling environment, which I lead to date, we've got 600 accounts per territory manager. So a defined patch, right? Each territory manager knows exactly what they have to go after. And within that 600 accounts, they will self-select 50 specific target accounts, of which they'll start to build out contact roles and do some manual enrichment and really identify who the key stakeholders likely would be. In our instance, it could be a CMO or a VP of marketing or a director of marketing for that matter. But this is what we're working towards. And knowing that a typical sale here at HubSpot in the corporate group requires about 3 job roles, greater than 3 job roles, we want to think about a few different tactics that we can work on with marketing in order to best serve our customers. And so we think about it really with these 3 bullet points. And it's inbound being that larger, big picture, growing and attracting folks in, kind of leading the way or paving the way for the mind share in your particular industry. And I think that's critical. And it really doesn't matter what you're selling. If I left HubSpot and I wasn't selling software and I was selling consulting or any type of product for that matter, Mindshare is critical. And inbound is a perfect tool for paving the way for the next generation of sales reps or scaling out your organization, but just generally becoming that trusted advisor as folks are thinking about their opportunities for partnership. The other bullet point, number 2, marketing is helping us with the specific outreach to the contacts at each account. And that's crucial. This falls back closely to the ABM component. And number 3 being rep-led marketing activities. And I'll give you an example of this. The third bullet point, which really aligns nicely to the ABM approach and what we're doing on the corporate sales team at HubSpot, is working to find specific offers that we could share with a marketing manager or a director, for example, that is enthralled with the opportunity of partnering with HubSpot, but they're getting stuck because they need to be able to put together some type of metric-oriented presentation to their CFO or CEO. And that's a high-value target account that we want to be able to support. And again, in situations like this with an ABM approach, we work on putting things together like a Convince Your CFO kit, as an example, that we can share with not only that marketer who's trying to gain traction with their executive group, but every other marketer that's running into that specific challenge. And that really follows the ABM practice. So continue to consider the fact that we require more than 3 job roles to actually bring on a partner here at HubSpot. And that the average account has 11 contacts that we've identified and enriched by marketing, through marketing, via marketing, what have you. So this is a really interesting concept, and I took some time even just thinking about this, and I would welcome you all to really consider the fact that if there are 11 contacts associated with each one of our target accounts, what are they all doing? What are they all interested in? What are their job roles? What are their interests? What are their motivations? And this is a critical piece for my squad, and as they're trying to figure how to provide a non-salesy, helpful, relevant approach from marketing to acquiring an actual partner, we really want to be able to pull out the relevant information that we can use to support the buying process of each individual that's evaluating HubSpot. And I'll elaborate on that a little bit. But here is an example of an organization that joined HubSpot about 1.5 years ago. And if you look, you have 2 different job roles with 2 very different levels of interest. And we want to be able to surface this type of information, right? So Nicole, in this particular scenario, she's frustrated with managing a variety of marketing tools, and she's looking for a more central location to do her marketing. Certainly, we can help her with that. She's got some metrics-oriented pains that she's trying to solve for. We can certainly help her with that. But how helpful is it to know exactly what she's interested in? Where the VP of Product and Marketing, Nick Robertson, is focused on integration between HubSpot and Salesforce and identifies that no one else is integrating as well as HubSpot to Salesforce. This is extremely helpful to the sales rep. It aligns very nicely with Inbound and ABM because we can take this information and bubble it up to avoid the all too often terrible experience that we've all encountered, where somebody really doesn't know where you are in your buying process. They don't know what you're interested in. And honestly, this is probably one of the most frustrating things that I've encountered. I'm sure we've all been there. So we want to try and avoid that. And it comes down to understanding really that 65% of the buying process is already done before most folks are talking to a salesperson. So what does that mean? Where are these people going? What are they looking at? What are they downloading? What are they interested in? Where are they gathering all this information? And this is really the mind share versus market share you can start to consider. Start thinking about if folks are out doing research and trying to educate themselves on a particular topic or solve a business pain within their marketing department, how do we interact with them and start to build trust early on in the sales process so that when we actually do cross the bridge and start having sales conversations, that we can be super relevant? And that's exactly what we're bubbling up. We're providing this context to the sales folks. So when my team is looking to make a call to Michael Smith, here being the example, they know that Mike has looked at a product overview and he's attended a customer spotlight. He's done some research around how to run an inbound marketing campaign. All sorts of very, very helpful, relevant information that allows the salesperson to align to the buying process of this particular individual. And I'll provide another example here. If we go to the next slide, there we go. So all of this stuff, what we're doing is we're surfacing this, right? So consider the number I shared earlier, 11 contacts on average we have per account. 11 contacts. So we literally have a variety of folks researching all sorts of different topics. And if we can't surface that information up to the sales reps in a quick and easy fashion, we lose a ton of time, we lose a ton of efficiencies, and we start providing a horrible sales experience, a terrible buying experience. And so we work very closely with Ari and Sam to not only provide very relevant information, but then to make sure after folks are researching HubSpot or spending time on the blog, watching webinars, downloading infographics, that we can pull all that information together and share it with the reps in this form here so that they can follow up and be super helpful. So I'll go back. I just want to challenge everybody for a moment to think about this, because I think it's very, very interesting, this mind share versus market share. Are they two separate thoughts? Are they two separate approaches? Does one come before the other? And I don't think it's a mind share versus market share. And I'll tell you why. I think it is a mind share actually leading to market share. And this is an important concept, because in order to capture all those potential partnerships out in the marketplace, it requires us to be relevant, helpful. Back to what Ari had discussed, we don't want to be salesy. Content is king. We want to be able to educate all of these potential stakeholders in each future sale. Knowing we may have added 3 contacts to an account manually from the sales side doesn't get us all 11 that we currently have in each account that we're servicing today. And I think the net of it is, by taking this approach and being helpful and being able to bubble up all this relevant information, we avoid the all unfavorable scenario of a terrible experience. So looking forward to the Q&A at the end, but I'm going to pass it off here to Sam. He's going to pick up and talk a little bit more about what to watch out for with ABM. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan. And I just want to point out to everybody that there's a Q&A panel that's on the right side of your screen. If you have any questions whatsoever, any comments, things you want to share, just type those in so that we can get to them at the end of the presentation. So I want to talk about what to watch out for with account-based marketing, what you should be concerned with. So account-based marketing has this one beautiful piece of content tailored to each prospect. One of the things that I hear a lot is the idea of a persona of one. Now, anybody who's out there who's familiar with doing RFPs, which are requests for proposals, or doing very large enterprise deals, will have a firm understanding of account-based marketing. At my last job, we used to win almost all of our business through large RFPs. So I'm very familiar with what account-based marketing looks like in an organization. And one of the things that I remember being so distinct about it is when you have these large client proposals, you're gonna get input from everybody in your company because you want it to be the most tailored, accurate representation. So you get marketing to create some of the proposal, work on the copy. Sales uses that information from their conversations to feed into that proposal. Services thinks about things that they can offer. And then executives are there to sign off and provide a high-level direction on things. And that's a really, really great proposal. But the other thing is, it's a lot of people's time. It's a lot of sales time. It's a lot of services time. It's a lot of marketing time, and it's a lot of executives time. And anybody who's worked on these kind of proposals will know it's not just about writing it. It's about scheduling meetings with each other. It's about finding times to strategize. It's about really digging into all of these different parts of a proposal so that you have a really tailored approach. But what if you start getting a lot of proposals? For me, at my last company, there was really 2 times of the year that we saw a huge influx of requests for proposals. We'd see them right before the summer months when people were going to do a lot of retail campaigns. People were getting ready for a lot of sales and e-commerce things that they wanted to promote. And so we'd have a lot of proposals then, and then we would have a lot of proposals at the end of the year. So what that really meant is that it was a ton of time. And since we had such an influx, it was difficult to scale up. We would hire people just before the summer, and then we would be struggling to keep them on in the middle months when we're not getting as much proposals. There just wasn't as much work to be done at those times. We were waiting around proactively for these requests for proposals because they only came in at a certain point of the year. Now, if we're going to be honest, if we're really just going to be true to ourselves, you won't win all the deals. You're not going to win every single deal. Even if you have the best product, even if you have the best team, even if everything is going perfectly, sometimes deals just fall apart. Maybe the person that you were working with has run out of budget and you're not going to win it. Maybe an incumbent came in with a presentation that was amazing and totally just blew you out of the water, even though you were providing a great price, great options, and all these things. Or maybe a new management came in and that new management is saying, oh, we're not going to do this anymore. So you might win, let's say you win 50% of these proposals. You kind of wonder what's happening with all of the other ones. All of that time, all of that effort from executives, from services, from sales, that's gone nowhere. And it's so tailored that a lot of the times it's not going to be useful. It's hard to actually take that content and switch it up and use it elsewhere. So this is clear. In order to scale, you need to get leverage. You need to make more out of what you're doing in order to keep growing. Otherwise, you're just going to be scaling directly proportional. You're going to be adding just as many sales reps, services people, and you're not going to be able to increase your profit margins. So I want to talk about just one example, and this is really the ebook. The ebook is like the poster child for inbound marketing. It's a gated piece of heavy content. And if we think about the ebook and we think about inbound, the ebook is all about leverage. Because if you take the time to write one ebook and you gather research, you get services involved, you get executives to think about it, you really make a great ebook that's applicable to your personas, that solves a really distinct problem. It's not just one ebook. One ebook is a bunch of things. It's really easy to take an ebook, take a few chapters out of it, take a couple sections of it, and turn those into blog posts. Those are more ways for people to find you. Those are more ways for people to interact with you. And that's creating content that's useful in different formats. You might do blog posts, you might do a video, whatever works. And the thing is, each one of those pieces, every one of those blog posts, every one of those videos, that ebook, those are all social interactions. That gives you a whole fodder of different blog posts you could tweet about, different ways you can engage your audience over different channels. In this picture, I'm just using Twitter as an example, but this ebook could be distributed over Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, over SlideShare, whatever format really works best. So the truth is, you're getting a ton of leverage out of this. This one ebook has now become so many different things. And you're getting this ebook with multiple stakeholders. Everybody's getting involved with it in the same way that they were with the client proposal, but you're getting a lot more leverage out of it. So one of the things that I'm curious from people in the audience is if they have experience, if you have experience primarily with requests for proposals or with large scale pieces of content, and you've struggled to repurpose them later on, just let me know in the chat pane if that's something that you've been experiencing. So I really am going to argue that I think ABM needs inbound. There's a lot of volatility to account-based marketing when you're dealing with a heavily request for proposal or large target accounts. People are locked into certain buying cycles, which means you're going to have a huge influx at certain times. And it's important to get a lot of leverage out of the content you're making. So the three kind of points I want to keep in mind here is that ABM involves a lot of people's times. And if you don't have a strategy to get leverage out of your work, it's all going to be for nothing. You're going to have a lot of those dead proposals laying around that just aren't useful. And Ryan has really drilled this point in before, but marketing needs to grow mindshare. This is a core tenet of marketing. We have to be out there getting the brand out into the world. And when you're not doing things and making it easy for people to find you, when you're going out and only hunting them down, it's a high cost for not that much exposure. So marketing can never forget that that's a core role we have, to generate demand by growing mindshare. Now, and the other thing that I want to really stress is that Inbound and ABM they both can do this. They can help create content that works for multi-channel and works for multiple stakeholders. But what's important is when you use the two of them together in the strategy that Ryan outlined and that we showed on the HubSpot platform, is that you're able to really get a lot more leverage out of your existing content. So I think that's a huge win for ABM and Inbound working together. You're getting a lot more leverage for lower cost that's going to be more effective all year round. So with that, I would love to take some time to go for some questions and see if people have any questions about any of the things we've talked about. Let's see. So I'm just going to switch and share my screen so you can see me. Okay. Great. So I think one of the things that I want to discuss now that I think would be helpful for people, and I'd love if you could dive a little bit into this, Ryan, is how has some of the data from inbound marketing or from the marketing we effort informed the sales team's larger decisions?
Sure. So I think what we've done primarily is collected information to help the reps dive in and start segmenting out their top accounts. We've used a lot of the data collection to inform what a target account really should look like. Ideally, you want to minimize resource expenditure for each customer you've acquired, and Inbound allows us to really understand what a typical buyer's journey looks like, since that first 65% is already completed before we talk to them as reps. Inbound allows us to really have insight to that full journey, from kind of awareness to consideration to decision, if you will. And we use that heavily in order to inform go-to-market, territory management, as well as making sure that we're serving our clients the right type of information along their journey.
Yeah, and I think one thing I just want to follow up with that is the customer journey is such an interesting area for us on Inbound. And one of the things is it really has been effective for showing us which action sales reps should take at which times. Mm-hmm. So for us, we see people down who are maybe further along on the funnel, and they might be interacting with a piece of content that we didn't anticipate. I think we've seen that with a lot of benchmarks reports. We've seen things like the trial for HubSpot. We have a 30-day trial. Originally, we thought that was something that was going to be really bottom of the funnel, but a lot of people are using that trial just at the beginning of their journey. So it's really great to see, like, from a marketing perspective, we're able to refine a lot of where that buyer's journey is occurring by surfacing all of the data.
So what if I flipped it around and asked you, Sam, when we try and decide on what type of content would be most relevant, how do you look to the sales team to decide what your next big marketing effort will entail? Like, what are you going to build? How are you going to build it? How do you decide like where you're going to spend your time based on whatever feedback you get from sales?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think any marketer has had this experience where somebody from sales is going to come over and be like, I have a great idea for a campaign. This is what we need to do. This is what you need to build. Get this thing ready. Like, it's going to be great. And from a marketing side, you don't always know if this is going to be the best idea. Sometimes you're solving for just a really specific small percentage of deals. Sometimes you're not. But I think one of the things that's great for me is I'll hear these things. Ryan and I work very closely together, and I work very closely with a lot of the reps. They'll tell me things like, oh, I really want to go after this market, or do we have anything that solves this specific issue? Like, I'll give you an example. One was getting sales managers involved with HubSpot. And one of the things was I got a lot of feedback. We need to get sales involved more. And I was a little bit skeptical why we should do this. But then I took that feedback and I was able to go through the data that we had and see that we actually did get a lot of sales contacts. And a lot of people from sales who were directors of sales and marketing were looking at our stuff. I think one of the things that's nice is you can get that qualitative feedback from sales and then be able to follow up with data to know if you should pursue it or not. So yeah.
Do you aggregate most of the data using the HubSpot platform? Like when you're looking at trying to really understand, what is a low hanging fruit for you or a viable opportunity to build some content?
Yes. I frequently will be doing attribution reports to figure out if there's been a change. If all of a sudden we're picking up a new piece of content. For an example was earlier in the year, multi-channel content offer we had on multi-channel marketing was picking up steam. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to know that's a great thing to double down on.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So I think a point worth sharing here is when we started building out the corporate segment of HubSpot about 3 years ago, there were about 4 or 5 reps in play. And we were using account-based marketing tactics at the time because we knew what best fit companies look like. And we would put together specific offers and generate content in order to target these handful of customers that we knew we were going to be great fits for HubSpot. But the problem would have been if we didn't look forward and start thinking about educating this segment of the market, we would have missed a really incredible opportunity. Because if you fast forward 3 years, the corporate segment now has 24 territory managers. That's 24. I mean, we're more than 3x on what the team looked like 3 years ago. And what's interesting is, as we talked about, we've got 11 contacts per account on average. That's incredible. But the amount of conversations that we're having today as a result of the forward-thinking Mindshare type of approach and the inbound approach is remarkable. People calling us because they've finished the 65% of their journey and want to learn more. And that might be a contact sales or a demo request or what have you. But it has certainly given us the opportunity to go from 5 quota carrying reps up to 24 in 3 years, which is obviously a tremendous outcome.
So I just wanted to jump in and follow up on that, Ryan, with a question. So we had a small set of reps. What you're saying is that this idea of ABM, of getting a specific set of target accounts, a small set of target accounts, your team with inbound at play as well has been able to expand even beyond that, where you guys are closing deals with accounts that maybe weren't even in that initial set of target accounts to begin with. You're expanding into new industries or into new areas that without inbound that wouldn't have come up.
That's exactly right, Ari. Yeah, it's really fascinating. So, and it goes to show that the ABM stuff tends to be successful for solving for your month and your quarter and the half year and the year, because you can see it. It's the one that's right in front of you and it should be a customer. But the inbound is solving for a lot of things that you didn't even know. And it's provided us an opportunity to go back and look at the data and say, wow, we knew what our addressable market looked like, but some of these industries we hadn't ever considered expending a lot of time. And even, larger and larger companies continuing to work with HubSpot that we wouldn't have really thought about 3 years ago, but they're coming to us and they're downloading things and they have a large number of employees with interests in solving for current marketing pains. And that gives us an opportunity to have some insight and create very valuable conversations. So yeah, it's been excellent.
Just to follow up on that, I'm kind of curious too, so you get these maybe new companies coming in from the inbound style in combination with the ABM. How does the inbound approach and the way that we at HubSpot have used inbound with content and with offers over the years and creating blog posts, how does that even impact just the first conversations that you have with folks, as opposed to maybe some experiences where you reach out a little bit more cold or a little bit just having identified them through your experience as a target account?
I love that question because I think it's so radically different than anything I'd seen in the past. So I've spent time at a number of other organizations selling and leading, and the sales track, the traditional sales track is you pick up the call and from day one you have to build trust and rapport. You have to be relevant. You have to stay relevant. That is a lot of energy, and it's inherently some very different sales skills required to get in completely cold like that. The conversation has shifted. And to answer your question, Ari, we're picking up from a place in our sales conversations today that an example would be, hey, notice you just read a blog on how to increase my lead generation. can I help you out with that? Are there some specific things that you're focused on around lead generation? That is a great conversation, right? We kind of understand what they're interested in. That's one example. Another one could be the product page, right? So either way, you're entering a conversation in a very warm capacity, which I think it's hard to wrap your head around if you haven't done it before. But when applying the marketing side here, the inbound component, it's a great feeling to be a sales rep in an environment where the mind share has been built out in front of the market share you've actually captured.
Great. That's a really helpful response for people. I think one thing, we're running up on time, and I would just be curious on this. How do reps really go after the target accounts? Like, how do they choose those, and how often does that change, and kind of where does that information come from?
So it starts with looking at our current customer base. We always want to take a look at how many customers do we have in particular verticals or industries, and get a really good understanding of not only how many customers do we have in that bucket, what does an average sales cycle look like, and we'll bucket by industry and employee threshold. And we use all that data to essentially give us a very clear vision on what's a great fit company and where do we want to spend a lot of time, right? So we gather that data, and the reps will use that to overlay and say, okay, these are the 50 accounts that I want to spend a lot of time on because I know they're great fits. And the inbound stuff is supporting it over the long haul, adding some other accounts that you probably never would have thought of or considered. And of course, those 50 target accounts will work closely with you, Sam and Ari, and figure out what types of content is going to be most helpful for facilitating a partnership.
It's awesome. I think that'll be helpful for a lot of people who are getting started with an account-based marketing and inbound kind of approach. With that, we've run just a few.
I think we got one question up there anyway.
Why you start my question? Why you start your channel? I'm not sure I know what that means. Could you rephrase your question? Let's see. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I think we'll just follow up with any kind of additional questions. Feel free to email me. It's sbalter, that's BALTER, at HubSpot.com. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have at the end of this broadcast. All right. Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.